Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, every business you start just ends up failing before it even begins? I know that feeling all too well. There was a time in my life when I thought I was entrepreneurial because I was always starting something new. Every week, it seemed like there was a new trend I wanted to chase. I'd watch a video, hear about someone making money in this or that business, and suddenly I'd convince myself, this is it. This is the one. And so I'd jump in headfirst. I'd spend hours planning, I'd waste energy dreaming about how big it would get, and then within a month I'd quit. Why? Because I didn't see results fast enough. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was building a dangerous habit. I was training myself to quit quickly. Without even knowing it, my identity became the person who doesn't stick to anything. And when that becomes who you are, you don't even need to fail big. Your own habits are already failing for you. I remember those nights so clearly. I would start a business, and then by the time a month passed, I was already browsing online for the next big thing. I didn't even give myself the chance to grow roots in one direction, because my eyes were always scanning for greener grass somewhere else. I thought I was being strategic, but the truth was I was just distracted. And distraction looks a lot like busyness. You feel like you're working, but really you're just running in circles, chasing air. There came a point when I looked at myself honestly, and I realized this wasn't entrepreneurship. This was escapism. Every time a business got hard, instead of pushing through, I escaped into a new idea, hoping this time it would magically work. It's a cycle that left me frustrated, broke, and more insecure about my ability to succeed. And here's the part that stings the most. The problem wasn't the businesses I tried. The problem was me. Not in the sense that I was bad or lazy, but in the sense that I didn't understand one very important principle. I didn't know my why. I was obsessed with the how to make money, how to build a system, how to copy this or that trend, but the how means nothing if the why isn't strong enough. Let me say that again, because if you only take one thing away from this video, it should be this. The how doesn't matter if you don't understand the why. You can know all the tactics in the world, but if your why is shallow, the first sign of difficulty will knock you down. That's exactly why so many people quit, and that's exactly why I used to quit. My foundation was sand. See, the why is like the soil. The how is like the seed you plant in that soil. If the soil is rich and deep, the seed will grow. But if the soil is shallow, no matter how good the seed is, it will wither. In the same way, the why is like the root system of a tree, and the how is like the trunk. You can try to grow a trunk as tall as you want, but if your roots don't go deep enough, the tree will collapse at the first strong wind. That was me. I had trunks everywhere, no roots, and everything I built collapsed as fast as I tried to raise it. It wasn't until I stopped asking, what's a good business to start, and started asking, what kind of business person do I need to become, that things began to change. That was the first spark of awareness that shifted everything for me. It's funny because when people ask me now, what's a good business to start, I tell them there's no such thing as a good or bad business. It depends on the person running it. The business is a mirror of the entrepreneur's identity. If your identity is strong, the business will thrive. If your identity is weak, even the best business model will eventually fall apart. And here's the turning point. When I understood my why, I realized I didn't need to start with what I didn't have. I didn't need a huge capital. I didn't need investors. I didn't need a magic product. I needed to start with what was already in my hand. And in my case, that was something as simple as bread delivery. I didn't despise small beginnings anymore because I knew the why behind it. That small bread delivery became the seed that, once planted in the soil of a strong why, grew into a business that now makes 6 figures a month. But before I tell you how that happened, let me be clear. I didn't arrive here because I discovered the perfect how. I arrived here because I discovered my why. And that's where this story really begins. When I look back now, one of the things that humbles me the most is that the business that changed my life was actually in front of me long before I even knew it. In fact, it was there before I was even born. My mother and father already had a bread delivery business. Every day, bread would come in fresh, packed and ready to be sold, and my parents worked hard to deliver it. It wasn't glamorous, and it didn't look like one of those big businesses you see in books or on TV, so for years, I just ignored it. It was always there, so I took it for granted. It was like background noise in my life, something I thought had no real value because it was too familiar, too ordinary. And because it was so obvious, I didn't take it seriously. This was my blind spot. I thought abundance only looked like something new or exciting, while the real opportunity was already sitting quietly at home, right in front of me. But during those years, I wasn't aware. I was distracted, and my distraction wasn't business, it was video games. I can admit it now. I was addicted. Day after day, I would wake up late, waste hours sitting in front of a screen, chasing levels and scores that gave me a temporary rush, but added nothing to my life. Sometimes, just to keep playing, I would even trade money, or worse, trade time for little things that could cover my addiction. Looking back, that habit wasn't just wasting time, it was draining my awareness. I was blind to the opportunities around me because all my energy was consumed in a virtual world. Then, life changed. I got married, and not long after, the pandemic hit. Suddenly, money wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't about having enough to play games or cover my own needs. It was about survival, about providing, about building something for my family. For the first time, the weight of responsibility hit me in a way I couldn't ignore. And that's when awareness started to break through the fog I had been living in. The pandemic became like a mirror that forced me to see clearly. Businesses were closing, people were losing jobs, fear was everywhere. And yet I realized, bread delivery didn't stop. People still needed food. And here I was, sitting on an opportunity I had ignored all my life. It had always been there, but only when everything around me felt like it was falling apart did I finally wake up to see it. That's also the time I discovered personal development. I stumbled across voices like Jim Rohn, Myron Golden, Bob Proctor, mentors who opened my eyes to a truth that shook me. Your income will never exceed your level of identity. That sentence alone rewired me. I suddenly understood why. Even when money was right in front of me, I couldn't see it. I wasn't the kind of person who could. My addiction, my distractions, my shallow habits, they had shaped my identity into someone who didn't deserve or even recognize abundance. Jim Rohn said it best. If you want to have more, you have to become more. And that hit me like a lightning bolt. All those years of chasing quick trends, starting businesses I didn't stick to, quitting after a month, it wasn't the market that was broken. It was me. I was trying to have without first learning to be. That awareness forced me to take a hard look at myself. I realized that if I didn't change my identity, nothing outside of me would ever change. My parents had already built something steady, something valuable, but I was too blind and too distracted to see it. And that's when the principle of be-do-have came alive in me. I couldn't just do a business because someone said it was profitable. I had to first be the kind of person who was disciplined, consistent, and focused enough to carry it. So I began to shift. Slowly at first, but consistently. I reduced my time on video games and put that energy into learning about money and business. I started reading books, listening to mentors, feeding my awareness with truths that built me instead of distractions that drained me. I no longer asked, what business can I start? I started asking, what kind of business person am I becoming? That one question alone flipped my entire direction. And when I finally started to see, I noticed something. The business was already in my house. Bread delivery was already there. It didn't require me to invent something out of thin air, because, like I said earlier, only God creates something out of nothing. What He does for us is place resources all around us. Nothing is missing. The abundance is already here. It's just a matter of whether we have the awareness to see it. That's what I realized. It wasn't about complaining about what I didn't have. Capital, connections, fancy tools. It was about starting with what I did have, and what I had was bread, a product people buy every single day. So I took it seriously. I decided, if this is my starting point, I will grow it. I didn't just deliver bread anymore, I started to think about how to expand it. I brought it online, set up systems, learned how to reach more customers. And from there, everything changed. That simple awareness that the answer was already in my hand became the seed that grew into a six-figure business. And here's the truth I want you to feel. The moment I shifted my awareness, my entire world shifted with it. The bread was always there. The business was always possible. The money was always within reach. But I was too distracted to see it, too unfocused to carry it, too unaware to take it seriously. It wasn't until marriage and the pandemic shook me awake that I finally realized abundance isn't missing. Awareness is. Now, when I look back, I realize that every distraction, every wasted year in addiction was teaching me one painful but necessary lesson, that you can't experience the reality of abundance if you are blind to it. And blindness doesn't always look like darkness. Sometimes it looks like video games. Sometimes it looks like chasing trends. Sometimes it looks like taking for granted what's already in your hand because it doesn't feel exciting enough. But the moment you decide to see, the moment you raise your awareness, that's when everything changes. When I finally opened my eyes and started to take the bread business seriously, I didn't just gain a business, I gained discipline. And that was the foundation of everything that came next. I began to understand a principle that had been there all along in the Bible, one I had heard before but never lived out. He who is faithful with little will also be faithful with much. But he who is dishonest with little will also be dishonest with much. That verse hit me in a very practical way. If I couldn't manage a small bread delivery, something as basic and steady as distributing loaves to our neighbors and community, how could I ever expect God to trust me with something bigger? How could I dream of financial freedom, scaling into bigger enterprises, or serving thousands of customers, if I couldn't even take care of the handful of deliveries that were already in my hands? It was like a mirror that exposed my excuses. I had been waiting for a big opportunity, when all the while God was testing me with a small one. And this is where so many people miss it. They pray for abundance, but they neglect the little they already have. They want a breakthrough, but refuse to faithfully show up in the ordinary. The truth is, the little is the test. The little is the training ground. So I leaned into it. I stopped despising the small beginnings. Instead of thinking, this is just bread, I started treating it like it was gold. I showed up consistently, delivered with excellence, and even when orders were small, I gave them the same energy and attention I would give if I had 1,000 customers. And slowly, my identity began to shift. I wasn't just the guy helping in bread delivery anymore. I was becoming a businessman, someone who honored the work of his hands and valued discipline over distraction. And here's the beauty of it. Once you shift your identity, your results follow. At first, it wasn't about big profits. It was about building the person inside me who could handle responsibility. Every time I resisted the urge to quit, every time I stuck with it, even when the excitement faded, I was proving something not just to myself, but to God. I can be trusted with more. That's the growth principle in action. The Bible doesn't say, if you dream of much, you'll be given much. It says, if you are faithful with little. That's the foundation. And in that season, faithfulness looked like me waking up early, handling bread delivery, learning how to talk to customers, and slowly bringing the business online. There's another layer here, obedience. I used to chase trends, always looking for the next big idea. But every time I did, I failed, because I wasn't rooted. When I stuck with what I had, something shifted. I realized obedience is more powerful than chasing vision after vision. Vision excites you, but obedience grounds you. Vision inspires you, but obedience builds you. And in the end, obedience leads to expansion. Think about it. So many entrepreneurs start strong with energy and excitement, but when they don't see quick results, they give up. I know because I was one of them. I would start something, wait for instant success, and when it didn't come, I moved on. That's not vision. That's impatience. That's not growth. That's chasing. Real growth requires staying power. It requires planting yourself in the soil and letting your roots go deep, even when you don't see fruit yet. And that's what happened with me. As I stuck with the bread business, discipline started to grow inside me, and as discipline grew, so did the results. At first, it was just a little extra income. Then as I learned to manage it, to scale it, to bring it online, it became a stream. Eventually, it wasn't just side income anymore. It grew into six-figure months. Not overnight, not by accident, but by consistent faithfulness to what was already in my hand. This is why I always tell people, don't despise small beginnings. Don't ignore what seems ordinary, because often God hides extraordinary abundance inside ordinary opportunities. The test isn't whether you can dream big, it's whether you can be faithful with small. Scaling into six figures wasn't about a magic strategy. It wasn't about some secret tactic no one else knew. It was about me changing from the inside out, becoming the kind of person who could handle growth. Because here's the truth. Money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies who you already are. If you're undisciplined with a small amount, you'll be undisciplined with a large amount. If you're faithful with little, you'll multiply when more comes. So for me, the bread business became more than bread. It became a mirror of my growth. Every loaf, every delivery, every small sale was training me to think bigger, act with consistency, and see abundance where others only saw routine. And the more I honored that, the more doors opened. I stopped asking, when will the big opportunity come? And started asking, how can I maximize what's already here? And that question changed everything. Because when you maximize the little, the big takes care of itself. That's the secret of growth, discipline, and obedience. And if I could sum it up, I would say this. The little you manage today is the seed of the abundance you will hold tomorrow. If you want six-figure months, don't wait for six-figure opportunities. Start by managing the 5 loaves and 2 fish in your hand. That's how multiplication happens. If I were to start my business all over again, knowing what I know today, I wouldn't chase trends. I wouldn't look for the next big thing outside of me. I wouldn't waste time trying to copy what everyone else is doing, thinking maybe that's the shortcut to success. No. With the awareness I have now, I would start exactly where I am with what I already have, and I would sell it first to the people already around me. Because here's what I realized. Abundance is never missing. God already created everything. When Genesis says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, that included all the resources we would ever need. So if God already created all things, the question is not what is missing. The real question is, what am I not seeing yet? When I look back at my life, the bread business was right there even before I was born. My parents were already delivering bread, the market was already in place, the customers were already there. But I didn't see it. Why? Because it was obvious. And when something is obvious, you tend to overlook it. You take it for granted. You look everywhere else for opportunity when in reality, the seed is already in your hand. That's the trap many fall into. They pray for opportunities, but they ignore what's already around them. They look for doors that aren't even meant for them while stepping over the open door that God already provided. If I could start again, I would pause, look around, and ask, what do I already have that people already want? That is the starting point. And this principle isn't just practical, it's deeply spiritual. Jesus himself said, "Seek, and you will find." Notice the order. He didn't say, wait, and it will show up. He didn't say, dream about it, and it will magically come. He said, seek, which means you have to search. You have to become aware of what's already there. And if you search with focus, you will find it. When I was younger, I spent so much energy trying to build businesses out of things that weren't mine. I chased trends, I started something new every month, and when it didn't work, I quit. That's because I was building from lack. I was thinking, what don't I have? Instead of asking, what do I already have? And when you start from lack, your business will always feel like it's not enough. But when you start from abundance, even if it's small, you build with strength. If I had known that earlier, I would have treated that bread delivery not as just bread, but as the foundation of an empire. I would have doubled down, served those customers with more creativity, and built systems earlier. But even though I didn't see it then, I see it now. And I want you to see it too. What you already have is enough to start. Think about it. Every big business in the world today started with something small. Apple started in a garage. Amazon started with a man selling books online. Facebook started in a dorm room. The principle is the same. They used what they already had in the environment they were already in, and then scaled outward. The market was already there. They just searched and found it. That's the lesson I carry with me now. If I were to begin again, I would stop waiting for the perfect business idea. I would stop asking, what's a good business to start? And instead ask, how can I serve the people already around me with what I already have? That's the real question. Because the truth is, there is no good or bad business. There's only a business that aligns with your identity and a business that doesn't. The success of the business doesn't come from the idea itself. It comes from the person building it. And here's another awareness. Scaling doesn't start with strangers. It starts with your circle. If you can't sell to the people around you, how do you expect to sell to people across the nation? If your product doesn't make sense to your neighbor, it won't make sense to the world. The bread business taught me that. Our first customers weren't people online. They were families down the street. But as we grew faithful in serving them, word spread. Eventually, when I brought it online, the same principle applied. The customers were already there, searching. I just had to make myself visible. This is why awareness is everything. A man earning $5 an hour isn't stuck there because $5 is all he wants. He's stuck there because he doesn't have awareness that he could earn $5,000 an hour if he shifted his skills, his mindset, and his value. His lack is not about opportunity, it's about vision. And once you gain awareness, your earning power expands, not because the world changed, but because your eyes opened. If I were starting from zero again, I'd apply this. I'd begin with what's in my hand. I'd serve the people nearest to me. I'd treat every small opportunity like training ground for bigger ones. And then I'd scale. Because once you've proven you can serve a small market faithfully, expansion becomes natural. The market is not something you invent, it's something you discover. And discovery comes to those who seek. That's the principle I want you to walk away with. You don't need to wait for something new to be created. You don't need to hope for luck or chance. You already have what you need to start. God already put it near you. Your job is to see it, serve with it, and scale it. That's how you build, not from lack, but from awareness.